Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all very much for taking the time out of your busy day to join us for a really exciting webinar to find out more about Sky Energy, the business, but also the investment opportunity which we're hosting on Equitise. My name is Ben Weinberger. I lead the fundraising team at Equitise, and this is the second of two webinars that we are hosting for the Sky Energy capital raise. And combined across both, we've had over 350 registrations for those webinars, which is a really fantastic response. Joining me here today, I've got Sam Kent and Ross Howard, who are the co-founders of Sky Energy, and very shortly we'll walk everyone through a really exciting presentation about the business and what lies ahead. Today's session is also a terrific opportunity for anyone that has had questions about Sky Energy, about the technology, or about the investment process to ask those questions. So we will allow time at the end for Q&A. There is a Q&A button on the bottom ribbon of your Zoom webinar. So throughout the presentation from Sam and Ross, please feel free, if there are any things that you do want to ask, put them into that Q&A function, and we'll allow somewhere between 20 minutes to half an hour to cover them off. There's a really decent amount of you on the call today, so if for whatever reason we can't get to all of them within the hour, if you ask the question with your name, we can obviously follow up with you prior to the raise going live so that we can try and get you an answer to your question before you have to make an investment decision. So just in terms of where we are in the process, we are on target for the raise to open up exclusively to everyone that's expressed interest the week commencing the 2nd of October, so roughly 2 weeks from now. So if you haven't already, I'd recommend everyone registering on the Equitise page for an expression of interest. That means you will get that exclusive early access to invest prior to it opening up to the public. We do operate on a first in, best dressed scenario, and we've had some really strong response. I would implore everyone to firstly keep an eye out on your email inbox so you can make sure you don't miss the invitations to invest exclusively, which will come from Equitise, but also that you're all set up and ready to go with an Equitise account, and have got your head around the investment process prior to opening up so you don't miss out. Once we do open up for investments, for those of you that are new to Equitise, what you'll get access to is a comprehensive offer document, which we're just putting the finishing touches on. That offer document will cover all the key information that you'll need to make an informed investment decision. It'll include things such as historical financials, use of funds, terms of the offer, key risks facing the business, and much more. If you do have any questions around the actual investment process, there's plenty of resources on the Equitise site, but we're also available at the Equitise team to answer any questions that you might have. So please reach out to myself personally, or if you can't find my details, you can obviously reach out directly to the general Equitise emails, and we'll follow up with you as quickly as possible. So I think that's enough for me. I'll pass over to Sam and Ross to walk you through the presentation. Over to you guys.
Thanks, Ben. G'day, everyone. I'm Sam, and my name's Ross. Quick history, a little bit about since about grade 3, and we had business together all throughout school, including primary school. And then at the end of school, we ended up doing our electrical apprenticeship together, actually in the renewable industry, installing solar panels, and coming out the end of our apprenticeship and eventually starting Sky Energy together off the back of that experience. Sky Energy started as a solar panel installation company, installing thousands of solar panel systems around Australia. And through that process, we began to see gaps and improvements in the market. And from that created our line of products, our flagship product, the Skybox, which simplifies access to renewable energy. So we've been working together for quite some time. Not entirely sick of each other just yet, a little bit. No, we're not. And the purpose of Sky Energy is to simplify access to clean energy. So we're reducing the barriers of entry to market when it comes to accessing clean energy, and doing it in a way that actually makes companies money. So it's making that clean energy transition a win-win for business and for individuals. Ross, would you like to tell us a little bit more about the Skybox range?
Yeah. So across the entire product range, as Sam mentioned before, our design philosophy stays the same, which is simplifying clean energy The way we do this through Skybox is Skybox creates a centralized, simple to install solution for converting renewable energy such as solar, wind, or hydro into a usable AC source of power. For us here in Australia, that's a 230 volt power supply or a 415 volt 3-phase supply. What makes the Skybox truly unique is the ease of installation. So as we mentioned earlier, we have been in the position of, as installers, of trying to install an off-grid system and the complications that come with that, from requiring dozens of specialized components to carrying a laptop around everywhere to do complex programming. We just decided that this needs to be way easier. So we've used our own personal experience and we've used our customers' feedback to constantly improve that installation process. And we believe that that is how we're closing the gap and making renewables a really viable solution for a lot of applications.
Yeah. And we didn't come up with this. We didn't think of this this idea lying on our couch, for example, or in our office. We experienced this by having ourselves installing solar panels on site and having our team. We've got about 40 in our team at the moment, having teams on site installing these renewable energy systems and giving us the feedback of how it could be better. And so the Skybox was born from that.
Yeah. So it's as simple as once a Skybox is put into place, whether it be on a factory or a residential home, an installer can simply plug in the renewable sources into the external inputs, slide the battery in and turn the system on. The product is pre-programmed, pre-wired, everything's done, ready to go. Super easy. So a little bit about the range here. So in the Skybox range, we have 4 models. For simplicity, we'll call them small, medium, large, and extra large. Your small model on the left there, that's for your tiny homes, man caves, small shed type applications. The medium one is for family homes, large sheds and small farms. Large is when you get to your container size. So that's around a 12-foot container. That's used for businesses, small commercial. We've used those on a few farms and small construction sites. And then on the far right, you've got your extra large or custom builds. So we use those on construction sites, mining sites. They can be used to help support the grid. Those go up to 1 megawatt hour of battery storage, and they've got a lot of power in them.
Yeah, and when we talk about the ease of installation, which we'll show you now, these systems are about 90% faster to install than traditionally installing off-grid or renewable energy systems, which, as Ross was saying, involves putting hundreds of components on site onto the wall. We'll show you actually now. So this is one we did in our factory. Hopefully you can all see that. So on the Skybox, you've got the left. So the Skybox installation is on the left, and on the right-hand side, you've got a more traditional renewable energy installation. And you can see here that the Skybox takes about 20 minutes to install compared to a traditional system, which takes, in this case, about 7 hours to install. And Corey, who did the installation, he's not slow. So he's got a lot of experience, and it still took him 7 hours with the traditional system.
Yeah, and this is a pretty standard small system that's installed, and you can see the difference is massive from 7 hours to 20 minutes. That difference just gets bigger and bigger as the system starts to get more large in size. So commercial sites and construction sites, that's not 7 hours. That could be 7 days or 7 even weeks. Yeah.
These are some of our partners, which Ross, our current partnerships, which Ross will share more about.
Yeah, so over the past 12 to 24 months, we've been partnering with all sorts of different companies, ranging from tiny home builders to electrical contractors and some large construction companies such as Maca and BMD. And it's been really successful. And the feedback we're super proud of from all these companies was that the installation was just super easy. So on this slide here, we can see a couple of examples of Tathra Beach and Sun Ranch. These are some beautiful eco-village accommodation resorts in Byron and New South Wales coast. They wanted to be sustainable and to be able to be off-grid. Although, as many other people experienced, it was quite difficult. By coming across us and using the Skybox, they were able to use their own internal resources and electricians to take their villages completely off the grid, which is awesome.
Yeah, and worth mentioning too, companies like BMD and Maca, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second, are international construction companies. So these are companies who are major players who are testing out the Skybox technology and getting some fantastic results already with the potential for international reach. This is one of the examples.
So case study here to put some proof to what we're actually saying. For those from Victoria who live around the Cranbourne area, the Cranbourne Road intersection on Hall Road, that site compound, if you've ever been past there, is actually running completely off-grid, and it's using a Skybox to get that done. So traditionally what they would have required was either a grid supply or a generator. By using the Skybox, they've reduced their generator runtime by over 85%. And what that means for Macca is that in the first year, they're going to make a saving of $65,000 because they're not spending so much on diesel and maintenance of the generator. And given that's how much they're saving, they're going to see a return on that investment in less than 12 months.
Which is really exciting because there's movement towards clean and renewable energy at the moment. And unfortunately, there's usually a cost to that. So people want to use clean energy, they want to use renewable energy, but it's typically more expensive than fossil fuels. What we're managing to achieve with this product, because of the simplification of it and the reduction in the cost, is that we're able to now get a renewable energy solution that not only is great for producing clean energy and helping companies become greener, it's also more cost effective. And so it's actually helping their bottom line. And it's that win-win scenario that we're really excited about, because it's probably the biggest resistance to uptake of clean energy is the cost. And now we're seeing results where it's actually cheaper than fossil fuels. This is a little bit about our history. You can go through this and you'll see this in more detail in the funding document that Ben mentioned coming out next week. But at a high level, we've been around for a couple of years now. As I mentioned, we started installing solar systems all around Australia. And we actually became one of Australia's largest battery installation companies, if not the largest at times. But we typically sat in the top 3 for a couple of years. So we actually had extensive experience with the existing battery technology and with solar panels. And it was from that Skybox was born. During that time, we were featured on several television shows like Sunrise, Channel 7. We did some stuff with the guys from The Block on the Four Sheds project. And we've also got next year a show coming out on Channel 7, which is going to feature the Skybox taking Jamie Jury's house off the grid in the suburbs in the Northern Beaches in Sydney. So some exciting exposure there, and a little bit about our track record, which you guys can read more about once that CSF document comes out. Our sales have obviously been increasing. This is our sales figures from the last couple of years. While this is really exciting, it also represents the biggest risk to the business. And that risk is that as demand increases for our product, that we are unable to meet that demand and our reputation becomes affected as a company. And we're really aware that we're approaching this point in the next couple of months as our sales are growing. And that's the reason we're seeking crowdsource funding in order to secure larger manufacturing facilities to be able to produce the Skybox ahead of the demand, maintain and grow our reputation for a great renewable energy company within the green tech space. So yes, while that is very exciting to see the increased growth of the sales figures, it's also our biggest risk at the moment, which is why we're taking the approach we are today. I did mention earlier that there's one of the things driving the uptake and driving those sales is government regulation. This is one of the main examples that in Australia, the government in July, I believe, passed new laws that companies need to move towards clean energy or face penalties. And so we're seeing government pressure on businesses to move towards clean energy, which has been part of the increased sales of the Skybox. However, this is representative of really sentiments globally, where governments are putting pressure on industry to become greener. And so given that we've now created this product, we've seen this gap in the market, now's the right time because industry is moving towards being green and feeling the pressure towards moving green. And assuming we can do that for them in a way that actually makes them money, we're in a really good position. It's a little bit about, as I mentioned, what the funding will go towards depending on how much money we raise. But predominantly, the money is going to go towards R&D. So growing our range of products, which will actually show you some new products that are coming out shortly in a minute. It'll go towards growing our commercial sales team. So that's building relationship into government and industry to help educate them on how the Skybox can be used instead of things like diesel generators. So R&D, growing our sales team, and obviously securing a new manufacturing facility to allow us to keep up with that growing demand for the Skybox. Ross, you can maybe talk a bit about the history of the models of Skybox and how we got to where we are.
Yeah, so a little bit about where the Skybox started and where we're headed. This picture here shows the 3 generations of Skybox we've currently got. On the left-hand side is our version 1. So that one was nicknamed the fridge, obviously because it's big and it's bulky and it looks like a fridge sitting in your garage. And that worked really well. That's been powering our office here at Sky Energy for the last few years, and we're almost 90% off grid here. So it's been going well. The feedback we got from an installation perspective, which we prioritize, is that it was a bit too big and it was a bit too bulky. So transport of the product was not ideal.
It's probably worth mentioning, and I only just realized this now, the pictures seem the same size, but the ones in the middle and on the right-hand side are actually about half the size of the fridge. So when we say it's smaller, that's a bit of an optical illusion.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. So the next iteration over is V2, which is in the middle. And this one's been super successful. Everyone has been loving it. It's smaller, it's modular, and it's a lot easier to transport. So that one's been really good. And I'll just show you some pictures of that one there. So it's actually currently for sale through a number of wholesalers as well. But this is essentially what it became. So that's version 2. As you can see, the batteries and the inverters were split into 2 separate halves, which made transport a lot easier. And it's been going very, very well.
And you can also see on the side, and this is important when you see the latest prototype, on the side, there's a lot of equipment and things kind of jutting out the sides. And so, as you'll see in the next model, we've actually slimlined a lot of that, which makes installation even easier for the installers.
So coming out towards the end of this year / early next year, we've got version 3, which is on the right-hand side. So while it might look similar to version 2, this one is completely different. It's taken into account all the feedback we've had from installers, from customers, from everywhere we could get. And we've developed the 3rd version. So this one here, as you can see here, we've made everything on the right-hand sides, all the inputs, all the cable entries and that, they're completely flush. So unlike this version where everything was sort of sticking out a bit on the sides, like that, we've now made that nice and flush. So it's a really neat install, super easy. It's a lot easier to install. And the battery capacity and the inverter capacity of this unit is actually, while it's been half the size of this unit here, it's actually more powerful and can hold more batteries.
Yeah, so it is literally about half the size of that current double stack model, and it's
about up to here.
Yeah, and it's more powerful, and we're really excited about that because it looks neater, it's easier to install, which is going to help us get market uptake. The easier we can make this thing to install. It's also got the color screen, which is pretty
color screen. Don't want to miss that. So on the front there, you can see a color screen. That was a big part of the feedback. Is a lot of manufacturers these days are getting rid of screens and saying everything can be done from a mobile phone. As installers, we know that's a big pain because half the time the Bluetooth doesn't work or the Wi-Fi,
especially off grid when you're off grid.
Yeah, and a lot of the customers that we work with who are off grid, who don't have reception and that, then a screen is super useful for them. So we've put a color screen on the front, touch screen. So without touching any of the box, you can use the screen to see exactly how your system's performing.
These are some of our new products that are coming out late 23, early 24.
Yeah, so as we said, the Skybox 3.0, says 2.0 there, but our 3rd version of the Skybox is coming out towards the end of this year. So that's super exciting. Large scale battery. So currently I'm in a picture there with one of our containers that are on site. These containers at the moment go up to about 1 megawatt of battery storage. We're seeing a huge demand for 1 megawatt plus when it comes to grid scale battery solutions. And even sometimes it's farming, sometimes it's just grid supplementation. There's a lot of demand for the big battery system. So we've been putting a lot of work into developing something that will suit that demand. And then the Skyframe prototype. So this is an easy, quick fold out solar panel system that can be easily connected to the Skybox. The current way of installing solar panels, again, from the philosophy we use is it's not as easy as it could be. And so we're simplifying that by making a solar panel system that if you've got a container, if you've got a Skybox, if you've got a tiny home or a construction site and you need to add solar panels and you're limited for roof space or limited for space, then you just fold this panel system out wherever you are, plug it into the Skybox, and you've got a fully renewable system ready to go.
Yeah, and that's really important, especially for construction sites, which the business is growing more into that market because the Skybox gets dropped onto site, and then the challenge is getting the solar panels installed onto that site as well. And so the Skyframe reduces the time of solar panels by we're aiming for the 90% reduction in solar panel installation time. So construction companies can drop in a Skybox, fold out the solar panels, they get pegged into the ground. It's 90% quicker, and then they plug it into the Skybox, and the site has renewable energy. Something I'll add to the prototype as well, and this is really important to know, is that the new prototype for the Skybox, the 3.0, it halves manufacturing time by about 50%. And as I was saying, one of our biggest challenges right now is being able to keep up with the demand for manufacturing. And this new model is going to reduce that by about 50%, even ahead of getting new manufacturing facilities. So that's really been part of our thinking internally, as well as making the most of what we've got and being able to use our resources to do more. And the new prototype is going to allow us to produce 50% faster Skyboxes, which we're really excited about too.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
you, everyone.
Thanks
we appreciate, and we understand most of you are probably on lunch, and we really appreciate you guys taking the time to jump on. So thank you.
Fantastic. Cheers, guys. A very thorough presentation, and I'm sure everyone on the call will have lots of questions. Good to see some already flowing through during the presentation, which is fantastic. Just for anyone that joined after I made my initial introduction to the webinar, you will see at the bottom of the Zoom ribbon, there is a Q&A function. Now is the portion of the webinar where we will be opening it up to everyone on the call to ask Sam and Ross any questions that they have about the presentation or anything more broadly that perhaps wasn't covered, which you're interested in before making an investment decision. So we'll get stuck into it, because like I said, there's been plenty that were coming through during the actual presentation. The first one is from Rahul. It's what percentage of construction sites, farms and mining sites are currently using renewable energy, and how are they doing so?
Great question, Rahul. I'm not exactly sure of the number, the exact number. It's very, very infrequently at the moment. Most people are using diesel generators to power these sort of portable energy solutions where they need power away from power lines. Typically it's done with generators. So the Skybox, this is worth mentioning as well. The Skybox can have a generator just plugged into it without any renewable source of energy too. Typically on a mining site or a construction site, they'll run that generator 24/7. Even if they only need a little bit of power at certain times of the day, that generator needs to continually run at its maximum capacity. And so what we're finding is people are also just plugging a generator into a Skybox. The Skybox controls that generator, turns it on for, say, 2 hours a day, charges up the batteries in the Skybox, and actually turns the generator off for 20, 22 hours a day. So you're saving that diesel cost or that and that generator wear and tear by 90%. So yeah, we're definitely seeing an application for generator with Skybox. Right now, how many mines and farms are using renewable energy? I don't know the exact number, but typically they're using generators at the moment. So there's an opportunity there to pair that with Skybox and reduce generator usage by 90%.
Fantastic. Cheers, Sam. Question from Pian. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Apologies if I haven't. What is the percentage makeup of each size of the Skybox in terms of sales?
So there's two ways to look at that. One is the quantity, and one is the revenue. So we sell the highest quantity of, I would say, the medium size residential, which is the prototype 3.0 would be our main product. That being said, even though quantity wise we move the most of that product, the commercial applications represent much greater revenue. So you might see one container is the equivalent revenue to maybe 20, 30, 40 of the regular Skyboxes.
Cheers, thank you. Question from Martin. Is the Skybox compatible with a residence with 3-phase power? Our current system load balances across all 3 phases and seems to draw more from the grid than it should, even when the battery is full. Would I have the same problem with the Skybox?
Yeah, good 3-phase power from residential to commercial. There are a couple of different ways of doing load balancing with 3 phases. So it's either your one is not functioning correctly or hasn't been set up properly. But the short answer is yes, it does 3-phase power as well. And depending on your situation, I'm not sure why your one isn't working all that well.
Fantastic. plenty coming through, so I'll try and get through as many as I can. And if I can group a couple together, I will do so as well. So if the question isn't exactly how you worded it, just bear in mind there's a few similar questions that I'll try and combine. Another question is, are you manufacturing the inverter and battery in-house?
So we don't manufacture the inverter and the battery in-house. They're sourced from other companies. Main reason is we like to get complicated products in the renewable industry, put them together in an easy to install way so that can reach the market. At the moment, given government regulations and product capabilities, we're finding that outsourcing these parts at the moment is the best way to go about it.
It's worth mentioning too, that may be something that as we grow our R&D department, that's something we look at bringing in-house. However, the guys and companies that are doing that at the moment are experts at what they do, and so we're using their products currently.
Fantastic. We'll just cover one question that we had flow in before the webinar from Beth, which is she would like to know the potential leasing options in the commercial side of things, whether or not that's a focus in the future.
Yeah, that's a great question, Beth. Typically on construction sites, all the equipment's leased. They don't buy much equipment. And so we're definitely looking into establishing at the moment partnerships with leasing companies so that construction sites can lease the Skybox rather than have to purchase it and maintain it themselves. Even though the maintenance is extremely low, typically it's all outsourced. So that is something we're definitely looking into next year.
Cheers, Sam. Question from SJ. I think there's a couple of questions around this, so I might just ask you at once. Is around how does the Sky Energy or the Skybox differentiate itself from competitors in terms of technology and market share? So the second one might be a bit hard to answer, but in terms of technology, what are the key differentiators?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess from a technical perspective, our design philosophy is what sets us apart. So when we design products, we prioritize a simple installation. And we're finding that is the biggest barrier to renewable uptake. So from all the products we use as installers, we discovered ease of install was usually a side consideration. So you can have the latest features and whiz bang, but it was super hard to install. It required lots of highly trained technicians. And so people just don't buy the product. So our philosophy on the way we design our products, I think is what sets us apart.
Keep it simple, because it's that complexity of existing products that puts people off and makes them expensive. The cheaper we can make it, the simpler we can make it, the more people are going to uptake it and faster they're going to get a return.
Fantastic. Another question from Pian is around the color touchscreen on the Skybox 3.0. Is it weatherproof?
Yes.
It's an easy question to answer.
Whole Skybox 3.0 is weatherproof, so you can put it anywhere.
Yeah.
And temperature controlled.
Yep, fantastic. Another question from SJ. Your rapid growth is impressive. Could you share your strategies for scaling operation whilst maintaining product quality and customer satisfaction?
Definitely. What we've had to consider is understanding the growth that's ahead of us before it happens. I think it's the key to being able to maintain what we're doing to a high standard, which is why we're seeking to raise money before it becomes a problem. So we're anticipating that as the demand grows, that we've got the groundwork laid to maintain that high quality before it happens. With the Skybox 3.0 being easier and faster to manufacture too, the simpler we make it to manufacture too, the easier it is to maintain the quality as well. So we're thinking about it from a design perspective to make it as simple as possible, as well as from a service perspective. Yeah, and being ahead of that growth curve is what I was saying, rather than getting a whole bunch of sales, not being able to meet the demand and blowing our reputation, which if we don't start getting ready for that in the next 6 to 12 months is what's going to happen, which is why we're here today.
Fantastic. A question from Anonymous. What percentage of serviceable market have you captured already, and what is left to capture?
Great question, Anonymous. A very, very, very small percentage of the market we've captured. When you consider the market really entails most of the generator energy supply market, it wouldn't even be 1% currently. It will definitely be the case, in my opinion, that we'll see hybrid generators, so generators paired with batteries like the Skybox, becoming the norm in the next 5 to 10 years. And we want to be ready for that and a main player in that game as generators transition to being paired with batteries. Because, like I said, by adding a battery to a generator, you're saving 90% on the running costs, and it's a no-brainer. And the Skybox can do that already.
Fantastic. Question, and I'm just staying on the theme of questions from Anonymous. Which Skybox models have the highest margins, and do you see the changes as the business evolves and potentially move more into the commercial, or the way you produce the products changes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question, Anonymous. Skybox on the small end retail, from a percentage point of view, has the highest margins, and the bigger large scale stuff, again, from a percentage point of view, has the smallest margins, but that bigger stuff creates stability and gives us a lot of work to do. So I think that we will keep the retail stuff going to build the brand and keep that going, but the commercial stuff is where we'll probably put a lot of focus.
The retail side as well. Currently, we have about 14 people in our sales team selling direct to market at the moment. It's been a huge part of our competitive edge that we can sell direct to market and offer installation as well as a whole turnkey solution, which I don't think any of our competitors can do. So yeah, that's been a real advantage to us.
Cheers.
Okay, losing my train of thought halfway through. And the retail team that I just mentioned that sells direct to market sells at a higher margin than some of our wholesale arms of the business. Now, the wholesale partnerships are great because they move the product at a lower cost per acquisition, because they've got networks where they push that product out towards, whereas our retail division requires a bit more nurturing of those leads selling to, for example, mums and dads building a home. And so it does have a higher margin in our in our sales team that's upstairs, and our wholesale arm has a smaller margin, but a lower cost per acquisition, and moves those products more easily. So it's a bit of a trade-off. We see the wholesale arm, even though it's a lower margin, being the way of the future in the next 5 years or so, because it's only through growing our network of resellers that we can really reach some powerful scalability.
Fantastic. Question from Pian is, how big is the installation team? And then the second part of that is, for the smallest Skybox, for example, how many could installation team install in a day?
So it's a good question. With the installing a Skybox and how many can you do in a day, there's probably a couple of things around that are involved. As that picture showed, if your cable's done and everything's in place, putting a Skybox in place and connecting the cables to it is, you're spending an hour maximum doing that. So super easy. So take travel and all that out of the equation. You could do, 4 or 5 in a day. But as installers, we know that's not the reality. You've got to install the solar panels, install the cables and all that sort of stuff. But now you can guarantee that Skybox component of your installation is going to be about an hour's worth of work, when before that could have been a guy standing there for a day.
Yeah, cheers. A question from Michael is, are you looking at wind power also?
Yeah, we are looking at wind power. We actually look at wind power quite often. So wind power, unfortunately, doesn't get the same kind of investment as solar panels and lithium do, mainly because big companies like Tesla and Samsung and all these guys spend billions in innovation in those sectors. Wind doesn't quite get that, even though I think it should. So we've put the feelers out to quite a few companies internationally to see different wind solutions. And and whilst wind does work with the Skybox really well, bang for buck PV right now is your best option, which is solar panels, and wind is your next best option.
Something we'll definitely look more into in the new year.
Yeah.
Fantastic. A question from Avril, which is more around the general investment process and returns, which I might take a stab at, which is, what might be expected for the expected ROI, and when might that return be expected? So it is worth noting that the company can't guarantee any sort of returns through you investing in the company. There are several different ways that you might receive a return, those being potential dividends, an acquisition of the company, or the company listing on the stock exchange. The company is, based off conversations that we've had, obviously very focused on growing and scaling the business over the next short term. Would obviously look for a liquidity event or some sort of return to investors in the medium term, but can't guarantee those. If there's any further more direct questions you have on that, feel free to reach out to the team, or you can access some more resources on the website that talk around potential ways that investors can receive returns and what that looks like when investing in a company through Equitise. Hopefully that answers your question, Avril. Question from Brendan. Well, firstly, a comment. It's a great presentation, very cool technology. If I was integrating with grid power and possibly a generator, is there software in your system that can look at the grid emissions factor, fuel emissions factor, and optimize time to charge the battery?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything you've mentioned there with the emissions factor and charging the battery off peak, the software is really cool. It can show some really good analytics of how much power you've saved, how much emissions you've saved, how much carbon it's offset, all that sort of stuff. And you can make really in-depth variations to when you don't want to charge the
control that offsite too. So some of our customers have seasonal specific requirements, or for example, if there's a construction site, they can only run the generator during certain hours, and they call up and say, hey, we've had a complaint from the neighbors. We can only run it during these hours. We can just change some stuff on our end. It'll send that data to the Skybox, and the Skybox will change the hours in which it uses the Jenny to charge up the batteries inside. And I can see one of the questions is asking, is it a lithium battery inside? Yes, it is a lithium battery in the Skybox, to answer that question too.
Cheers. There is a question about whether or not the battery is lithium, which you've answered. And the second part of that is, are there any kind of safeguards that are built into the technology to prevent fires?
Yeah. So the batteries are, the battery. So there's international battery standards. Do you remember what IST
62619?
That's the one.
Is the highest level of international safety standard you can get for a battery. It's not very easy to get. And a lot of manufacturers come to Australia because of the big lithium boom and try to sell their batteries. If they don't have this particular standard, I would steer clear of them. Everything we've put into the Skybox has got that certification. So we've made sure of that. It's also Australian CEC approved as well, which means it's gone through almost a double certification to really make sure it's safe. As well as that, our battery is a battery inside a steel cabinet, which is again inside another steel cabinet. It's almost got that double level of protection on it as well.
Fantastic. Question from Bruce is the Skybox compatible with existing inverters?
Yeah, the Skybox is compatible with existing inverters. It can read the generation of existing inverters and use that power to charge your batteries or offset your power usage. So it integrates really well with existing inverters.
Are there any restrictions to that, or is it just
so it can work with any inverter out there. Some inverters will give you a higher level of detail in the monitoring system than others. So some are just going to show you how much you're generating, whereas Fronius, SMA, SolarEdge, ABB, if you've got any of those type of inverters, it can give you all the statistics on different voltages and amps and all that sort of stuff coming through as well.
Fantastic. Question from Rahul is, why have you chosen to go down the crowdsource funding option through Equitise as opposed to other forms of investment?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it kind of was born out of, we did an initial round of funding from friends and family and staff members, and there was something about that. We really enjoyed getting people on board who shared our vision and our mission, and who were really excited about what we were doing. So partnering with like-minded people who share our mission and our vision is something that's really important to us. We'd definitely be open to, I think, if there was, an individual investor who sort of wanted to go down that path, would be open to it. For us, it's what's made us successful to date is how quickly we've been able to react to the market from the real life experience we've got. So whoever we were to partner with, if it was an individual or a company, would have to share that philosophy and help, push the company in the right direction. But as for now, our speed to market has been what's propelled us. Yeah. So we want to maintain that.
Fantastic. Question is, how is Skybox positioned or Sky Energy positioned going forward, given Victoria's recent announcement around banning gas connections to new homes from 2024?
What do you reckon?
I think you couldn't create more demand for a product like this more than ever. Banning gas connections was pretty surprising, given a lot of Victoria and Australia as a whole runs on gas, and we have a lot of gas here, which means the demand just skyrocketed for the need for renewable energy sources, and we need to get those sources into people's hands as quick as possible and as the easiest way as possible. So, yeah.
Thank you, the Victorian government. So next question is, you mentioned the funding would be used for 4 areas. What's the rough breakdown for each area? Obviously, that is kind of dependent on how much we end up raising. But what is the rough breakdown? And the second part of that question is, what's the estimated new facility setup costs?
Yeah, great question. We've always run extremely lean, and we plan to continue to do that. We wouldn't, for example, want to be receiving funding and then extending our budget to a place where we were, out of money in 12 to 24 months. We want to really make sure it goes the distance. Setting up a new manufacturing facility is fairly inexpensive. It's more a space issue. For example, I've got a facility earmarked that's pretty much ready to go, and it's really about a 40% increase on our current rent. In terms of capital expense, we don't have a lot to go in there, maybe a forklift and things like that. But most of the building's done by Sparkies working off benches. And so our initial setup cost for a new facility is quite low. And that's going to allow us to divert whatever other funds are remaining into growing our R&D and into growing our sales team, which it's by growing those divisions, it's going to make us more competitive, get us more sales to feed the new facilities.
Fantastic. Question from John. I mean, you touched on this already with the previous question, but what is the total capital invested in the company, and how has that been funded so far? How's the business been funded so far?
Yeah, so it's been, like I said, friends and family put in, off the top of my head, about 130K. And so that's how we funded it so far, as well as credit from suppliers and things like that.
Yeah, so pretty impressive to bootstrap it, to essentially bootstrapping it to where it is today, with roughly 8 million turnover in FY23. So pretty impressive. Just looking through some of the other questions. Question from Martin: how much competition is there on the market at the moment for the Skybox or similar products in Australia?
So competition-wise, Australia it's got quite a lot of products happening here. There's a lot of regulation that comes with selling a product in Australia. So put it this way: the demand in Australia for renewables and the supply, the demand's huge. And you could call the Skybox, it plays in the all-in-one sector. And the competition there is, there's probably 3 or 4 companies I could name off the top of my head that we know of who are competing in our space, but the demand for it well outweighs right now what the competition is. And we're going to keep working on the way we design things and the way we do things, and we believe that's a big gap where no one's really playing at the moment.
Fantastic. Just looking through, given 15 minutes left and still plenty of questions to get through. Question from Brendan. How much value do you think your customers place on the local manufacturing and support for Skybox against any other product USPs, unique selling propositions?
Yeah, I'll just quickly say that the Made in Australia factor to the Skybox is really important, but people aren't generally willing to pay a whole lot more for it, in honesty. And we're aware of that. So we understand that we need to have our product priced correctly, as well as being made in Australia. We can't just rely on that as a unique selling point.
Yeah.
So that's correct.
Yeah, what was the second part to that?
What was the second part to that?
I think that was the entire question, which is how you stack
the local manufacturing value.
Yeah. There is value added to that, but we can't just blow out the price and say, look, we're made in Australia, look at us go.
Yeah.
We've still got to be super competitive with the imported products.
And the price of, and we got to ask this question last webinar, which was really good, so I'll mention it again. The price of the Skybox product compared to buying all the components and doing it yourself is another similar factor to that, in that we can't just charge so much more money because it's already done for you, whereas installers would rather just buy the components themselves, save having to spend the extra on the Skybox and just, save a couple of grand and do it themselves, because essentially the Skybox is taking their work for them. And because of that factor, we've engineered the Skybox in a way that it's actually cheaper than buying all the components off the shelf and doing it yourself, or very close to on par with that. And that's been an important part of our design philosophy, is we've got to make it easier, we've got to make it simpler, and it's got to cost the same as what it currently does. And we've hit that point.
Yeah, fantastic. Follow-up question from Brendan was on the large utility scale, larger utility scale batteries. How do you think you stack up against iron flow batteries?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess that's a question more asking, how does lithium stack up against iron flow? From our perspective, the question we more ask is, what is the method that our customer is going to be able to easily get this product to save the money and be renewable? So whether it's choosing lithium, we're not here today to promote lithium or anything like that, but to say the installation process for us, whether it's maybe one day down the track, it is iron flow, maybe it's fuel cells down the track. But what's priority for us is making sure that we supply a product to the market that they can actually get installed and maintained and serviced well on their requirement. So yeah.
Is question from Anonymous. All going to plan and you raise $5 million Aussie. You've identified fast tracking into New Zealand. Can you expand on this growth opportunity?
Yeah, we've already had a couple of chats with suppliers in NZ who are keen on the product. What's really important to us is that we don't overreach, and that we get things really well established here in Australia before going into international markets, where we definitely think we are going to end up. Well, that's our plan. And so having the extra funding would allow us to start to explore some of those conversations a little bit more seriously, and start to send the product potentially out to New Zealand sooner. The product itself is already compatible. You'd speak a bit more to that.
Yeah,
with international.
From a technical perspective, with international New Zealand being the easier one, is that the product currently will work with international standards. So one of the benefits of us importing using inverters and batteries that are internationally recognized is, even though we do set the settings right now for Australia, it's as simple as a setting change, and we can sell our products in New Zealand, in Europe, in America, anything like that.
And we've had quite a few conversations with international projects, and we will consider them as they come up, and we do. But our focus is getting Australia 100% right, ahead of the current growth curve that we're experiencing, so that we can maintain our reputation before expanding into international markets. And extra funding will help us do that sooner.
Fantastic. Another question from Anonymous is, what's the funding options for the retail sector? Presumably for people purchasing, what are the funding options available to them?
Yeah, are we talking about the sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question. Do you get?
No.
Sorry, Ben, what's the question?
The question is, what's the funding options for the retail sector? That's how it's written. They're probably potentially purchasing, as in different funding options, whether or not it's renting it, payment plans, or the like, something. That's how I understand it. But if that's not the question, I think it's been asked by Matt, then maybe reach out directly to the guys, so we can try and clarify the question and then get you the appropriate response.
We offer finance on all our products, so that helps, Mac.
Fantastic. Question from Ben. Other than your present financial expansion plans, what other hurdles are you facing? Are you seeking larger commercial partners? And what other technical solutions are you considering? Any remote powered communications capabilities? A few questions there. So maybe you want to take the first one. Outside of the financial expansion plans, what would be the key risks facing the business?
So other hurdles. The hurdles definitely the rapid expansion, and that we need to increase our manufacturing ahead of that growth curve to maintain our reputation. Are we seeking larger commercial partners? For sure. That's part of the funding going towards the commercial, growing the commercial sales team. Like I said, there's about 14 in the retail team right now, and using that funding to grow the commercial sales team so we can start to have more conversation with government, more conversation with commercial partners. A big part of that is educating them on how this product works compared to what they're used to. And what other technical solutions are we?
Yeah, so I think other technical solutions are we considering. So within the whole renewable space, I think there's a lot of methods for capturing renewable, whether it's hydro, wind, solar. And right now everyone just goes, yeah, let's just get solar PV and be done with it. But the bigger commercial companies, even talking high-rise buildings in the city or anything like that, you've got to get creative. So what we consider is, how can we capture more renewables and give it to the people in an easy way? And that's a lot of the technical conversations we have. So looking into different avenues of how we can convert the abundant renewables we've got into a way people can actually use in complex scenarios.
And remote powered
communications. I think that means remotely monitoring our products in different locations. Yeah, that is possible, if that's what you're asking.
Don't we do that already?
Remotely
monitor our Skybox.
Yeah, all of them are remotely monitored.
Yeah, we remotely monitor all our Skybox products.
Remote communications.
I think that's what Ben means. Hopefully, sorry Ben. If that's not right, give us a call.
Yeah, fantastic. Question from Nick. With the fire question that was asked earlier, how does it go at keeping the batteries cool in high temperature areas like North Queensland, especially with high humidity?
It's a good question. Temperature regulation is always high on our priority list for these systems. So right now we've got an active cooling system which activates with the battery or the fan, depending on the inverter, depending on what needs it. Look, at the moment, if things get too hot in far North Queensland, it gets really warm up there. It's going to cool down as much as it can, but then it doesn't become unsafe. It starts to just derate. So if you've got a 5 kilowatt inverter, you might start to get 4 kilowatt out of it. And that's how the system regulates and stays safe. It prioritizes safety over output. So it'll always be safe. If it's too hot, you might just get a bit less out of it.
And the bigger ones have air conditioners.
Yeah. So and then the container size ones all come with air conditioners. So those ones stay really well regulated. The comments I just made are more on the smaller side.
Cheers. Another question is, what will you be doing to become a household name? So what will trigger Skybox to go to to be the go-to thought for commercial and domestic markets over already well-known companies where familiarity creates trust?
Well, it's taking advantage of what makes us different, which is that simplicity factor, and then getting it in the hands of installers and retailers, essentially, which is our plan for next year. Right now we're selling to retail, but moving more through those wholesale channels where people are realizing that this product is cheaper or this on par for cost with their existing solutions, and it's 90% faster to install. It's those sorts of factors that are going to get the installers and the retailers who sell these products to start selling it more and more, and then through that you start getting the momentum of selling more, therefore you make more, therefore you improve the product more, and hopefully that cycle continues.
Fantastic. Just conscious of time, we've got about 5 minutes left, so we'll try and run through the remaining questions that we've got here. We might not get to a couple of them, but another question is, what maintenance of the Skybox is required?
Yeah, so there's no moving parts in a Skybox. So the batteries, the inverters, everything, nothing is moving much like a generator. So the maintenance is very, very low. I'd say the maintenance on a Skybox is going out there every so often to check mice or spiders or anything aren't creating nests or anything in the area, keeping it well ventilated, and checking and opening the doors and just giving it a once over every now and again. But from a maintenance perspective, it's super low.
Yeah.
Another question is cost. So what's the cost of the residential home Skybox? How many have been sold to date? And who will install the phase 3 Skyboxes when they're available?
So the Skybox starts at about 15K, sold almost 300, I think, to date. Phase 3 is on its way. So we're expecting that to arrive in the next month or so. And who will install it? That'll be us, our teams here. Well, not me personally, not Ross personally, but our teams and our partners of Sky Energy, who are some of those were on that slide that you guys saw earlier. So yeah, that's who's installing it now, and we're looking to grow that network.
Cheers. So a question from Herliana. I'm not sure I quite understand the question, so maybe we can take that one offline. And
I can probably have a go at it, Ben, if you like.
Go for it.
Herliana's asking, from the 130K you raised, what's the value you're in now? And then of the 3 to 4 main competitors, what's your market share? In terms of valuation, we're looking, hasn't been announced yet. However, we're thinking it's going to be about 4 times earnings. So we're looking at a val of about 30 mil in this next round of funding, and we're looking to sell about 10% of the company, very roughly speaking. And that may change between now and the launch. Of our 3 to 4 main competitors, one of them in particular has been very well funded, as I think has raised about 15 million so far, which is actually really exciting to us to see one of our competitors raising that much money, showing that there's an appetite in the space. And it's been a bit of a David and Goliath battle between us and them for the last 2 years or so. However, our market share is very comparable, I would say. I mean, I might be biased, but I believe our product's better. I believe it's faster to install. I believe the quality's better. And we've done that and gone head to them with virtually no funding. So I'm really excited to see what we can do with funding. And that being said, I think right now the market's probably pretty well split, about 50-50. And so we've done that with absolutely no funding, and I'm just excited for what the future holds.
Fantastic. And then last question for the day is, what other marketing strategies do you have to build more awareness apart from building more and selling more?
So our marketing department is really strong. I would say that probably our biggest strength as a company, well, aside from the product itself, is our sales team and our marketing team. And that's been born out of the solar industry, which is extraordinarily competitive. We've had to, over the years, refine our marketing processes and our sales processes to be some of the best in the industry, because it's extremely competitive. And we don't sell for the cheapest price. We sell off quality and service. And so we've had to become very good at the marketing and sales side of the business. Currently, we spend about, roughly speaking, about 50K on marketing a month, which is mostly through social media. And we've managed to get our lead costs down through years of experience of doing that. We spent multi-millions on marketing in the past 5 years or so. And so we've actually got the marketing side of it quite well down pat. I'm most confident in the marketing and sales part of the business for sure.
Fantastic. So that gets us right about 1 o'clock, so right on the hour. A big thank you to everyone on behalf of Equitise for attending the webinar. As I said, if you do have any additional questions that we didn't cover today, please reach out to the Equitise team or the Sky Energy team, and we'll get you a response. Once again, we will be opening the raise exclusively to those that have registered their interest. We're commencing the 2nd of October. So please keep an eye out. You'll obviously get really plenty of warning as to when it does open up, but you won't want to miss out because we have had strong interest. And then a final comment from Sam and Ross. Any parting words to everyone that's been on the call today?
Yeah. So someone asked about the exit strategy earlier on, the investment strategy. I'd say that investment isn't for people. If you're thinking to get an exit in the next 12 months or even 24 months, this isn't the investment for you. So I'd say that straight off the bat. This is something we're aiming to list on the stock exchange. Our goal is approximately the next 5 years or so. And so we are definitely keen to expand internationally and aim for a stock exchange listing. That most likely will be the exit point at this stage. So it's an investment that's for a little bit longer than a year or two. If that's you, don't consider it. However, if you're looking for something slightly longer term, this might be for you.
Fantastic. All righty. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day. See ya.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Cheers.